All right, guys, so I've talked a little bit about in some of my past YouTube videos about learning how to escape and mount. Today I want to film just a few tips that I like to use from the mount position to control my opponent. These are tips that I use quite a bit when it comes to attacking the mount. Me personally, I like to attack the mount. I don't necessarily look to transition to the back, although I do take it if it presents itself. But personally, I've lately especially, I've been finding a lot more enjoyment just working from the mount position. So anytime I get to the mount, so it starts off with the idea of an underhook, right? So I'm gonna just start off from this random passing position, right? So let's just say I pass the guard. It's always gonna start off with an underhook here, okay? So I'm looking for the underhook even before I worry about passing the guard here. So even if he wraps up my foot, don't necessarily care about it. And this brings me to another situation that happens a lot. Like you get into a mount position, you're trying to get to a mount position, and say for example, my partner's gonna try to elbow escape towards the side here. Like people will try to cross face. Just go right back for that underhook and try to get that arm out, okay? But anyway, so any situation where I pass my partner's guard, I'm always looking for that that underhook here. So again, it doesn't really matter what happens to my legs. If he does catch my leg, then I'll start working the head, come back, and then open up the legs and get to the mount position. So first and foremost thing that I'm looking for is head position. If my partner is gonna bridge, he needs to bridge on the side where my head is. So if I know where my head is in space, it's gonna help me defend the bridge when it comes. So in other words, if my head's center and he bridges that way, I go pretty easily. If my head's on this side, I go even easier. If my head is on this side and he bridges that way, then I don't move. So little subtle detail here, when I go do something like this, I can tell where he's gonna bridge and I can just move my head accordingly. Now in this situation, my head's on this side of my body, but I can also post with my hand on this side. So if he does bridge in that direction, I can move my head slightly and just keep my hand posted. If he bridges in that direction, I can bring my head to this direction and drive my shoulder just a little bit into his head here. Now, again, earlier I mentioned from the mount position, if I'm driving his face that way, oftentimes your partner will try to elbow escape here. Okay, so once he starts getting on his side and starts to elbow escape, it doesn't really matter where my head is at this point. So a lot of people, they'll try to maybe even switch up the grip here, but if Cameron can get on his side effectively, he can still attack that elbow escape very easily. So this is why I like having the underhook quite a bit, because if I have an underhook here, even if I'm just staying underneath his elbow, if he tries to go for his elbow escape, if he tries to go over his elbow escape, I immediately just try to get under his arm here and start working up towards his head, okay? Now the next thing I like doing, and it's better from the side here, the next thing I like doing is dropping my hips, all right? So when my hips are dropped, I put more weight on my partner's chest. If he tries to bridge, it's difficult. If my hips are up and he tries to bridge, it's pretty easy for him, okay? So all I do here is I just drop my hips in my chest and I can still work my attacks from this position with my hips low. Now, in the event that you have somebody who's pretty strong and they're able to get down to this position, one last tip that I like using is I just cross my feet. This is worst case scenario. I cross my feet. Now when he tries to get his legs underneath me, it's difficult. And he can try to drive his hamstring down and open it up, right? But by then, hopefully look, I'm working back for my underhook here and getting him back to center. Now, one last thing I like doing when my partner's being a jerk, and Bryson, who's holding the camera right now, I did this to him earlier. If he starts to get his head on the side, sorry, he starts to get on his side here, right? He's got all of his frames in. Then I'm gonna go underneath the crown of his head here, and I'm gonna lift and pull him towards the opposite direction. Okay, so again, if he's able to get on his side, look, I go almost like I'm gonna palm the bottom of his head, and I'm gonna try to get my lever on the crown of his head, lift and pull, and get him towards the opposite side. And now I can adjust myself to get a better angle on the attack. So hope you like these tips to maintain your mount position. Go out and punish some people. Again, if you like this channel, be sure to subscribe, comment, leave a reply, let me know how things are going, and yeah, awesome. See you later.